Whenever I think about selling a business, my mind immediately jumps to one thing: the price tag. Just show me the money, right? Put up a for sale sign, wait for the highest bidder, and sail off into the sunset.
That's the version that gets a lot of business owners into serious trouble. If you treat selling your company like selling a used car or even a house where you just hand the keys to whoever has the cash, you are setting yourself up for a potential disaster.
Disaster? That sounds a bit dramatic. If the check clears, why do I care?
Because getting to the closing table is way harder than people think. And even if you do get there, the wrong buyer can destroy what you built in 6 months. Or worse, the deal falls apart halfway through because you didn't realize the buyer was never serious to begin with. Today, we're unpacking a recent insight from Transworld Business Advisors about identifying the right buyer. And spoiler alert, it's rarely just about the math.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So, if we aren't just looking for the person with the deepest pockets, who are we looking for?
We're looking for a fit. And that sounds vague, I know, but think of it this way: selling a business is less like a transaction and more like a marriage, or maybe a divorce where you still care about the kids. You have to categorize who is knocking on your door. Broadly speaking, you've got three types of people.
Let me guess: the corporate refugee, the guy who hates his boss.
Bingo. That's category one, the individual buyer. These are often people leaving the corporate world. They have a 401k, maybe a severance package, and they want to buy themselves a job. They want to be the boss.
That sounds like a safe bet, though. They're motivated, they need this to work.
They are motivated, yes, but they are also the most nervous. This is their life savings. They aren't just looking at your profit margins, they're looking at your life. They're asking, wait, can I actually do what this owner does? If your business relies entirely on your personal genius, an individual buyer is going to run for the hills. They need systems.
So for them, it's about transferability. Can I step into your shoes without tripping over the laces?
Exactly. And there's a financial catch with them too. They almost always need financing, SBA loans, bank leverage. So if your books aren't squeaky clean, the bank won't lend to them and the deal dies. You can waste 6 months courting an individual buyer only to find out the bank says no.
That's a nightmare. Wasted time is basically wasted money in this game. Okay, so who's the next contender?
The strategic buyer, this is the one everyone dreams about. This is the competitor across town, or maybe a supplier who wants to integrate your business into theirs,
The big payout. Because they aren't just buying cash flow, they're buying synergy.
right? They want your customer list, your intellectual property, or your location. And because of that, they will often pay a premium. They'll pay more than the business is strictly worth on paper because it solves a problem for them.
I hear a but coming.
Massive but. This is the most dangerous buyer to talk to
Why? Because they're sharks?
because they are competitors. Imagine you invite your biggest rival over, you open your books, you show them your margins, your secret sauce, your top client list, and then they say, nah, we changed our mind.
Whoa, they just conducted corporate espionage legally.
Precisely. They might be tire kickers just fishing for information, or they might be serious, but the culture clash is so bad the deal implodes. Strategic buyers are high risk, high reward. You need a buffer like a broker between you and them so you don't reveal the crown jewels before you know they're serious.
That makes sense. You need a gatekeeper. Okay, so we have the individual dreamer and the strategic shark. Who's left?
The financial buyer, usually private equity groups
The Wall Street types.
in a way, but these days private equity is looking at Main Street more and more. They aren't looking to run the business, they don't want to work the register. They are looking for a return on investment. They often want the current owner to stay on for a few years.
Oh, interesting. So that's not a clean break.
Not always. It's what they call a second bite of the apple. You sell 70% of the company now, pocket the cash, keep running it with their resources, and then sell the other 30% later for hopefully even more money.
That sounds great. But I imagine the vetting process there is intense.
It's brutal. They will tear your financials apart. If you have any skeletons in the closet, they will find them. But here's the thing about all three of these groups: individual, strategic, and financial. Identifying them is only step one. The real art is vetting their intent.
You mentioned tire kickers earlier. I love that term. How do you spot one before you waste your time?
You have to ask the hard questions up front. Do they have the funds? Not, do you think you can get a loan? But show me the proof of funds. You'd be shocked how many people browse businesses for sale just as a hobby. It's like Zillow surfing, but for companies.
That's wild. People just browsing companies they can't afford.
All the time. It's a fantasy. Oh, maybe I'll buy a coffee shop. A good vetting process filters those people out instantly. This is where confidentiality comes in too. You cannot have word getting out that you're selling.
Right. Because if your employees find out,
They panic and leave. If your customers find out, they switch to a competitor because they worry about stability. If your suppliers find out, they tighten your credit terms.
so you're trying to find a stranger to buy your most precious asset, but you can't tell anyone you're doing it. That feels like a paradox.
It is. That's why the blind profile is so important. You market the idea of the business, a profitable manufacturing plant in Ohio, without saying it's Bob's Widgets on Main Street. You only reveal the identity once the buyer has been vetted and signed a non disclosure agreement.
It really does sound like dating. You don't give your home address on the first message. You meet in a public place, check if they're normal, and then you move forward.
Perfect analogy. And just like dating, you have to know what you want. I've seen sellers walk away from the highest offer because they realized the buyer was going to fire all the employees.
That's the legacy piece, right?
It is. If you've built a company for 20 years, those employees are like family. If a strategic buyer comes in and says, great, we're going to shut down your office and move everything to our headquarters, you might get a big check, but you have to live with putting your team out of work.
And for some people, that's a deal breaker.
Absolute deal breaker. I remember reading about a deal where an owner took 10% less from an individual buyer because he knew that buyer would keep the name on the door and keep the staff. That peace of mind has a value.
So when we talk about identifying the right buyer, it's really about aligning goals. It's not just who has the money, it's who fits the future of this business.
Correct. And it's also about who can actually close. I can't stress this enough. A signed letter of intent means nothing if the buyer gets cold feet or gets rejected by the bank. You want a buyer who is realistic.
How much of this is a gut feeling versus hard data?
The data gets them to the table, the gut feeling gets the deal signed. But you shouldn't rely on your gut alone. You're too emotionally attached. You see your business as your baby, the buyer sees it as a machine. You need a third party, an advisor or broker, to translate between those two languages.
Because the seller is talking about sweat equity and relationships, and the buyer is talking about EBITDA and multiples.
Exactly. And when those languages clash, deals die. A good intermediary manages the emotional temperature of the room. They keep the buyer focused on the potential and the seller focused on the reality of the market.
It sounds like preparation is the ultimate leverage.
It is. If you know who your ideal buyer is before you list, you shape your business to look attractive to them.
Wait, explain that. How do I shape the business for a specific buyer?
Okay, if you want to sell to a strategic buyer, you focus on market share and proprietary tech. You make yourself a threat they have to buy. If you want to sell to an individual, you focus on cleaning up your processes so the business runs without you. You make yourself replaceable.
That is a fascinating distinction. So you're literally building the exit ramp years in advance.
If you're smart, yes, you don't just wake up and sell. You groom the animal for the show.
Let's circle back to the vetting process one more time. Is there a red flag that is an immediate runaway for you?
If a buyer refuses to sign a standard NDA, non disclosure agreement, or they try to redline it to death, walk away. If they don't respect your confidentiality now, they won't respect your business later. Also, if they are rude to the broker or the intermediary, that's a huge tell
How so?
because deals get hard. Due diligence is stressful. If they are difficult when things are easy, they will be impossible when the lawyers start arguing over representations and warranties. You want a transaction partner, not an antagonist.
That's profound. You're going to be stuck in a foxhole with this person for 6 to 9 months. You better be able to stand them.
And remember, even after the sale, you usually have a transition period. You might have to train them for a month or two. Do you want to spend 60 days training a jerk?
Definitely not. Life is too short.
Exactly. So identifying the right buyer is really a mix of financial qualification, can they pay, and cultural qualification, should they pay.
It's funny. Is we started this conversation talking about money, and we've spent almost the whole time talking about psychology, fit, and preparation.
That's the reality of the market. The money is just the result of getting the other stuff right. If you focus only on the dollar signs, you usually end up with less money and more headaches. But if you focus on the fit, the value tends to follow.
So, for our listeners who might be thinking about selling in the next year or two, what is the one question they should ask themselves tonight?
Ask yourself, if I handed my keys to a stranger tomorrow, what breaks?
Oof, that's a tough one.
It is. If the answer is everything breaks because I'm not there, you need to find an individual buyer and start documenting your processes. If the answer is nothing breaks, we're a machine, then maybe you're ready for private equity. Know your business and you'll know your buyer.
Know your business, know your buyer. I like that. It's not just a transaction, it's a transition. And getting it right means you can look back at your legacy with pride instead of regret.
Precisely. You want to walk past that business in 5 years and see the lights still on.
A powerful thought to end on. Thanks for breaking this down. It's a complex world, but clearly having the right map and the right guide makes all the difference.
Always a pleasure.
And for everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.